Hey everybody, it's me, Slogdog. It's the end, everybody. Yorick nerfs, they've arrived. I can't believe that the changes are actually in. Their classic Riot move, buff a champion and a few patches later, punch him to the ground. It's a bit disappointing to see this nerf, because although it targets the fallow Yorick and the higher damage builds, this nerf hits every part of Yorick in general. Now your bruiser builds, your tank Yorick builds are going to be doing less damage because of these E nerfs. It's a simple blanket Yorick damage nerf all over the board. This also means that throughout early, mid and late game, your E perk all-in damage will simply just be lower now. So if you're used to the damage, you're gonna have to readjust to that muscle memory, but it's okay, because at the very least, we got something good in return, right? Maiden is now more tankier. Sometimes. Now that Maiden has more armor and MR than ever before, it means that I can tank more hits, right? Well, they removed the 50% damage reduction from AoE damage, which means that champions with a lot of AoEs will straight up do a lot more damage to Maiden. Overall though, honestly, this is still a buff in the laning phase. Most of the bad Yorick matchups like Aurelia, Tryndamere, Jax are going to struggle a lot more trying to kill Maiden. They will no longer be able to just jump your Maiden and just smack it to death. You can actually fight back and Maiden will live. ADCs and auto attackers will also have trouble killing Maiden as the game goes on as well. But mages like Syndra, TF, who like throwing out these cards, throwing out the balls, yeah, it's gonna destroy Maiden. Honestly though, even though Yorick's E damage got nerfed, I like the Maiden change quite a bit. I think that there are basically two classes of people for Yorick. Group A, the champions who Yorick destroys, and Group B, the champions he gets destroyed by. And that gap between them are kinda lessening, which is good. This way, he won't lose as hard to the bad matchups to the Maiden change, but he also won't destroy the champions that he's currently good at a little worse, which is fine. Yorick's damage is still going to be lower, of course, but these quality of life changes really help him out to feel more smoother, satisfying, and kind of even him out to play. But it does worry me more and more though. Let's talk about the E change a little more. The past two Yorick nerfs have targeted his E ability, his only skill shot, and the ability that pilots the ghouls. They are nerfing his ghoul damage more and more, and right now, we're going into a direction where landing E will no longer have a reward. Riot has also openly expressed a dislike for the fallow Yorick, and they are in fact planning a mid-scope within the next few months. This kind of scares me because my favorite parts of Yorick are the ghouls. I play Yorick because I like the power fantasy of being a necromancer. I like the ideal of being an undead badass creature. And right now, believe it or not, Riot has made the perfect champion. I don't know a single champion that can make so many different builds and setups work and have so many playstyles that are all viable in low elo and high elo. Yorick is a really cool champion, although he isn't the most popular among really high elo players. He's insanely cool, and I really hope that they don't screw up this Yorick mid-scope. If Riot kills the fallow Yorick, that'll be fine, but I still hope that there'll be a high risk, high reward variant Yorick playstyle. And I hope that the ghouls don't become like Neferi dogs, where they're just a shitty DLC that don't even matter. I hope Riot doesn't dog down Yorick into a brain-dead bruiser juggernaut like a worse version of Narcissus. And I hope they emphasize on Yorick's theme and idea as an undead man with ghouls and Maiden. It's scary because the fallow Yorick perfectly captures that playstyle of a squishy little necromancer that sends his ghouls and Maiden to do the hard work. Meanwhile, Bruiser Yorick is a relentless juggernaut that runs you down. But the ghouls and Maiden are kinda, whatever, you don't need them. Anyways, with that being said, let's start praying. Praying that the Yorick mid-scope that Freak talked about will be good. And also, finally talk about the matchups and items and builds, and whatever shit that changed in patch 14.5. Nothing's changed. Literally nothing has changed. No top lane champions have changed, no top lane items, so instead let's talk about the current meta builds and setups. As usual, we'll start off my favorite, the fallow Yorick. I still think even through these nerfs, it's the strongest setup you can possibly run. The amount of DPS that Yorick can dish out is absolutely insane. It has to change the fact that you can do ridiculous stuff like this. The Lethality as a stat is fundamentally Yorick's best stat, so it makes sense that it's still the best. Conqueror, Hail Blades, Comet, and First Strike are all really solid rune pages with this setup as well. The fallow Yorick makes use of all the keystones, but Hail Blades is particularly good just because it synergizes so well with the lethality damage and the profane synergy. This is a second version of a lethality Yorick setup that I like playing every now and then, except it's a lot more movement speed based, utilizing Phase Rush as the main rune and the Strider Breaker movement speed to get in and out. It's an incredibly fun build that really pushes the limits of yourself need to make use of good movement as your defensive tool. Oh yeah, go phase rush as well. You need this, otherwise you'll be too slow and this build won't work properly. And this is the bruiser build that I like as well. I don't usually go bruiser build at all, but if there is any, I usually do this build. This bruiser build has a lot more ghoul damage and specializes in the mid line, going in and out spamming abilities. A lot of these items are interchangeable. For example, if you want less damage but more survivability, you can replace Cleaver or Shojin for a tank item or Son of Sky. And you can even swap them both out for tank items like Jackshow or Frozen Heart to be super beefy. Ultimately, Bruiser build is super flexible and going tanky stats. It's up to you to adapt to the game. The final build is... I can't believe I'm recommending this. Triforce. Honestly, there's a lot of flexibility with other tank items and bruiser items, but this is the classic Yorick bruiser build. With the Maiden buff no longer having a cooldown on Maiden procs, Triforce is better now because of attack speed, and ultimately, it still synergizes really well with the Q spam and low cooldown of it. If you replace your bruiser items with more tankier items, you can kind of jam your head into the wall and it will still work out. Obviously, there's a lot of items that are good. Son of Sky, Frozen Heart, I can't talk about all of them. It's very dependent on the game. I highly recommend going Conquer with this setup. I see other Yoricks play with Hail Blades every now and then for more burst, but Conquer's too good, so do that. Anyways, that's the patch review for this patch. Pretty depressing to see the Yorick nerfs, but hopefully we'll be safe from the nerfs for the foreseeable future and the nerf infidelity. Thank you, Riot.